Hey everyone, welcome to Amateur Hour Gaming. It's the channel where me, a average guy, takes a look at a game that's really good and I tell you why it's good. Today, we are looking at Disco Elysium from developers Zaum or Zaum or ZA/UM. I'm not sure how to totally pronounce it. Disco Elysium came out in 2019 on PC, and throughout the last few years it's come out on everything, so you can get it on PC, PlayStation 4, 5, Switch, Xbox One, Series S, X, and Stadia even. And it's a tradition. It's like a narrative-based role-playing game. Very, very story-heavy. There is not combat. This is a game that wants to tell you a story, and it also wants you to build a character and experience that story, however way you want to build that character. I'm playing what's it called? The Final Cut. Disco Elysium, the Final Cut on Xbox Series X. You'll notice the little Xbox logo and the dots in here, and it might be a lower quality because I'm actually streaming it from my Xbox to my PC so that I can record it. And so yeah, Disco Elysium, very, very good. It's one of the best stories I've played in a game, and I'm going to do my best to avoid any spoilers for it. So we'll just talk about normal stuff. To get into what makes this game so special, I'm gonna go to new game quick. And like I said earlier, it's a role-playing game, and I know when we think role-playing games, we tend to think like Skyrim, Fallout, or JRPGs even, which are it's a totally different. This is like I didn't play role-playing games back in the day, like in the 90s, early 2000s maybe even, where like I don't even know how to describe it, but RPGs like Skyrim and Fallout are very simplified. You just put your stats in the thing and they make you stronger. And that's it. It's just starting from something and becoming stronger in a variety of things. In Disco Elysium, it does not work like that. Your attributes, your skills, your stats, or whatever, they. How do I even describe it? There's so many. We're going to create our own here. So as you can see, there's intellect, psyche, physique, and motorics. That's your four main stats. You can pick one of these pre-made ones. I picked thinker in my playthrough because I like being smart, but he wasn't very physically strong. But we're gonna create our own just so that we can see everything. And when you create a character, you can. Oh, I guess you can't. I thought you could put it all the way if you wanted. We're just gonna leave it like this. You can see raw brain power, sensitivity, musculature, your senses. And then those four attributes go into these 6 more specific attributes. and what you set them to the first time, so you've got intellect up here at 2, you can only raise your logic up to 2. Well, it starts at 2 and you can raise it up to 4. Or your motorics here start at 5 and you can get it up to 10. Those little diamonds are how far you can raise it. And what's all these different things, this is a lot of stuff. I know this is a lot of stuff, but it's really what makes this game special is these 24 attributes are being constantly checked throughout the game. Every time you say anything or walk anywhere or look at anything, these skills are being checked. And you don't see that a lot of the time because if you walk into a room and your perception doesn't notice anything, the game's not gonna be like you smelled the air and you didn't smell anything. It's only gonna tell you if you smell something. If you walk in, you're like you see something, your guy sees something out of the corner of his eye or whatever. And these are like the best way I can describe it is these are 24 different parts of your character's brain, and you actually have like conversations with them. Like I had encyclopedia, I think is going to be my best example. I had a really high encyclopedia because I was like, I want my guy to know a lot of stuff. And one really cool thing about this game, you know how I said that Fallout and Skyrim and the like, you just start low and eventually you become really good at everything. Each of these stats, if you build them too high, they will actually be a detriment to you because you can be too smart, and that's what encyclopedia did for me. That's the biggest one I noticed. So if we look to the description here, I'll just read it. Encyclopedia makes you a know-it-all, turning your mind into a database of... So one thing, I guess, so you might be wondering, why would too much knowledge be a bad thing? And as it says, it may give you crucial breakthroughs and more often will clutter your mind with useless tidbits. And that's what happened in my playthrough, as I would be like just talking to people or looking at things. This encyclopedia part of my brain would just constantly be giving me useless information that doesn't actually matter. I would like look at a car, an encyclopedia would pop up and be like, ah yes, the 1923 model whatever built in this city is whatever, and you can like keep talking to that encyclopedia part of your brain, but it's just irrelevant information. And that might not seem like a big deal, but in Disco Elysium, the time passes whenever you make a conversation choice or you discuss something with your brain. So having this encyclopedia constantly talking to me throughout the day actually cut into a lot of time that I could have been using investigating. I forgot to tell you the story of Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is a game where you play as a police officer in this rundown city, post-war city, and your case is solving a murder. And you start the game, your character wakes up and he doesn't remember anything. He doesn't remember his name, he doesn't remember who he is, why he's there, where he is, anything. And I know that's kind of cliche, but they actually handle it really well in this game. And I don't want to spoil too much, but getting back to these stats, that's just one example. You can look at all of these, like, perception wants you to be open to the world with eyes, ears, and nose working at full capacity. It enables you to take in what others don't notice. The little wad of bills hid away in the sugar bowl, the odor of a perp hiding beneath the floorboards, the gulp of a suspect after claiming they've nothing to hide. At high levels, perception takes in every final detail of the physical world, enough to overwhelm all but the strongest mind. However, with low levels, you are going to miss out on everything. After all, you can't arrest what you can't see, hear, or smell. I had very low physique and psyche in mine, so my guy was not very strong, he was not very intimidating, and that came into play a lot when if in this game you have a health meter and a psyche meter. Both of mine were very low because of that. If anyone would insult my guy or he would get a memory back of something that embarrassed him, his psyche would go down, and at one point I had a mental breakdown because my psyche was damaged so much that I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I like blacked out and had a near game over screen. It might have actually been a game over screen, I don't remember. So these stats are incredible. Having too high or too low giving you boosts and bad things is really awesome, and they all work so well. I'm hoping I'll be able to show you some examples. Let's go into one of my save games. I believe this one should be a good one. Yeah, let's go into this one. The loading screens are, I shouldn't say they're surprisingly long, but so here is Disco Elysium. We're gonna walk out into the main area.
What do you want to know?
Oops, I didn't want to actually talk to you. This is, I would say, in the middle/early middle part of the game. There's a distinct first and second. Yeah, this is definitely still in the first half of the game. So here's the world. Obviously, I think it's a beautiful looking game. I love the painting style of everything, how it just looks like everything was painted on. That looks really good. I will say, if you zoom in pretty far, the characters kind of don't blend into the scenery as good as you'd like, but you could zoom out pretty far too and it still looks good. Just let's get some minor complaints out of the way, because I think this is an absolutely fantastic game, but I do have some minor complaints. One of them is that I don't have anything to back this up on, but I feel like on the PC version you would use the WASD to move and then you would hold shift to run, I'm guessing. But on Xbox, you just hold the stick and you run the whole time. And that gave some weird dialogue things where people are like, dang, you're just running everywhere, huh? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just holding the stick and moving. And then I realized later that if you hold it halfway, you only walk. And there are just things like, wow, you're really athletic. And I don't know if that's because... I don't know if that's normal or if it's just a weird thing. Another weird thing is how you actually interact with things. Again, on PC, I'm sure you just use the mouse. This mouse does nothing because I'm streaming from my Xbox, but on PC, you just use the mouse to click on things. On Xbox, you push the right stick somewhere and then hit A to select it. And that can kind of... It can be difficult to select what you want sometimes. Like, for example, I kind of want to clear this out so that it's back on its base thing. Nothing. So let's say I want to select that trash can to the left there. If I hit left on the stick, first it goes to this boy. If I hit left on the stick again, okay, at that time it did go right to it. But like if I want to go to this mud pile of footprints to the right of me that you saw there, if I hit right on the stick, it doesn't go right to it. It's based on where you're aiming at right now. So while I'm over here, I'm going to push the stick right, and it goes to that kid up there. I push right again, it goes to this kid over here. I push right again, it goes to my partner, right another time, and then it goes to those footprints. It can just be a hassle sometimes trying to select what you want. I found a lot of times I would go into a room and just kind of flick it around until it selected something, because a lot of the times you can't select what you want. It's just a weird choice. But another minor complaint I have is we'll go. There are a couple points in here because the world is painted on and your characters are just kind of walking over it. It can be difficult to see where you need to go sometimes, and there are times when the control stick doesn't go where you want to go. So I'm going to give you an example of that up here. So here we are up on this rooftop, and at first glance it looks like this is it. It's just a rooftop. But what you can actually, like, I'm just going to settle on the screen real quick, because there's actually a lot to explore up here. You go up on this thing, and this takes you over to this building. And like it's so hard to see, like your character, a lot of this doesn't look like, even that, man, I didn't see this before, but even that board, like it just goes through you. It's some of the things just, it's hard to see where you can go. Even here now, you're like, oh, okay, I made it here, that's pretty cool. But no, you can go, gosh, how do I even do it? Here you go, you can, I swear I'm not being obtusely, like I'm trying to, let me tell you, so those are stairs there, obviously. I'm holding up and to the left, and he pushes me down that way. I'm holding up and to the left, still holding up and to the left, and this is what he's doing. I should have turned my webcam on. You have to hold straight up, and then he goes to it. There's just some, it only happens like 3 or 4 times throughout the game. But there are just times where you want to go somewhere and your character just doesn't go there. And it just, for a game that is so incredibly immersive with all of its choices, its dialogue, its stats, its attributes, it's just frustrating to have some of these clunky control schemes that get in the way of everything. So we're going to... Here's my stats in the game, as you can see. At this point, I'd only leveled up a few things. Another feature I really, really like in this game is this thought cabinet here. And what it is throughout the game, you will get these ideas. Like, you'll learn something, and it'll just be like this thought that's in your brain. Like, finger pistols is one of my favorite ones. He just had an idea for, like, finger pistols one day. He's like, I wonder... Because you learn this pretty early on. You can't find your gun. You don't know what happened to your gun. So the idea of finger pistols comes into his head. And what you do with these ideas is you can use these thought slots to focus on them. And what it does, like for Mazovian socioeconomics, is he thinks about it. I'll just read it here. People think communism was some crazy idea that had its... Excuse me. Like it was some crazy idea that had its comeuppance 40 years ago, a fever that shook the world, never to return again. They were right until he woke up today, a spiritual corpse. Okay, a lot of this I don't understand. I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot of... It's fine. So what happens, though, when you focus on this is you see up here, you actually take a hit to your stats while you're focusing on it. Like here, I will lose 2 in the visual calculus attribute because your brain is so focused on thinking about Mazovian socioeconomics that you lose something else. It does that for all of these while you're focusing on it, and it goes for 3 hours, 4 minutes in game time. So once that's up, I get the visual calculus back. You learn about whatever you're trying to focus on, and you get a benefit or a negative. So for finger pistols, after I thought about it for however long, I got +1 reaction speed, and if I don't have anything in my hands, I get +1 suggestion. And I also had 1 conversation opportunity where I could use my finger pistols at someone. So this game, all you do is walk around, talk to people, and investigate things. That is 95% of this game. It is... I think it's safe to say it's an RPG. There's no combat. There are instances where you confront people and have choices to make on how to deal with the situation. Like if you had a gun, you could shoot people in certain situations. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Let's just go through the menu real quick. There's your inventory here, which has tool, clothes, items to interact. I will say, later in the game, navigating this can be a little annoying. You just get a lot of stuff, and it can become a hassle to go through all your clothes and be like, oh, which of these boosts my stats in the way that I want to. Another thing I will say, the story in this game is incredibly well thought out. The writers created an entire world, like decades, maybe even centuries worth of lore, of story, of history for this city, for this country, for the countries, for the war that happened, for these people, their lives. Everything is incredibly thought out. It is a sight to behold, but I will say, for me personally, it was too much. Maybe it could be because I had my encyclopedia thing built too high and I was just getting an overload of information, but I never got a good grasp on the country, on the cities, on the differences between them. It just and what's frustrating is you play a character who's lived in this world his whole life. He's lived in this country his whole life. And so it just felt crappy to not have an understanding of the world in the same way that my character is supposed to. And there are a lot of economical/political things. Like my guy eventually took on communism. He was a believer in communism, and so I had dialogue choices that dealt with communism, and I never felt like it was right to use them. It was just weird to walk up to someone and be like, hey, I'm investigating this murder, what can you tell me about this? And they say something, and then I'd be like, yeah, well, have you ever considered communism? Because capitalism sucks. And I just never felt like that was right to bring up. It just felt like it was thrown in there. There's a loading screen tip. Every once in a while we're loading where it's like, don't be afraid to say strange things. People are more forgiving when you're a person of authority. And I just don't buy it. That's not the kind of thing that I feel like a cop would do when investigating a murder. So let me see if I can do this skill check just to give you an idea.
Just an ordinary war. Nothing to see.
You'll come across... I mentioned that those skill checks happen passively as you're talking to people, walking into places, looking at things. But you can also get ones like...
Just an ordinary war.
This
Nothing
one
to see
would
here.
use my conceptualization. Where could I... Here, I know where we have one. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. So yeah, that's just another downside. But I just didn't select those dialogue options. I was able to play the game just fine without selecting those dialogue options. So you can progress through the game just by investigating, talking to people, doing skill checks. The world to explore, I don't think this is a spoiler because I didn't know what to expect going into it, and I kept... This city you're in is the only city you'll be in. You'll never go anywhere else. There's no bigger world to explore. This is it. And I like that. I like that you get to learn about the citizens, their plight, their schedules. It was really cool. I'm gonna go show you a skill check here. I'm hoping I fail it. There comes to points in the game where it's roadblocked and it gives you different ways to try and advance. Like at this point in the game, I'm trying to... You know what? Let's go somewhere else. We're trying to get into a harbor where the leader of the workers union is, because the harbor workers are on strike. And I'm not going to explain any more about the story. That's just why we're trying to get in there, is we need to talk to the boss leader, and the harbor workers are on strike, so we can't get in because they don't want anyone to have access to the boss in the middle of this strike. So the different options you have to get past is you can steal... Early on, I'm assuming early on there's a guy who's passed out in a bar, and you have an option to steal a key card. I didn't do it, but I'm presuming that would give you access to a locked door. Another option, which I'm going to show you over here, is talking to this very large man who's blocking access to it. This guy here. And you have the option to...
Your race descent has only worsened.
Oh, I can't do that anymore.
So
Interesting. So...
really let yourself go.
You can... He's a big old racist. He thinks he is the best... His people are the best race in the world. And you can agree to him with that and kind of join his side, and he'll let... I'm presuming he'll let you pass. I decided not to. I started talking to him about it and was like, this makes me feel icky, so I'm going to find a different way around it. You can also try and knock him out. As you can see, my physical instrument is low. I have a 17% chance of passing it. Let's see what happens. You're kidding me. You've got to be absolutely kidding me. This did not happen in my playthrough.
Just like that, instinct took over. A solid strike straight into his throat, into the cartilage. You could swear you felt the soft palate break. The man is reeling, gasping for air. Time stands still around you. In the distance, the sounds of the harbor are falling silent. All you hear is a small gurgling sound as a trickle of blood appears on the page.
I hope you notice this. As you can see, these different parts of my brain, the different attributes are telling me what's happened. They're telling me what's seeing. Physical instrument is telling me what it did. Perception is telling me what it's hearing.
Now's the time.
Savoir-faire is giving me a suggestion for what to do. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's like French. Now's the time for a spin kick. He expects the 1-2, not the 1-360.
No. Don't be a fucking ballerina. Rip into him. Right hook. Get intimate with him. Bring the hurt closer.
So, different parts of my brain are giving me different suggestions on what to do. I'm going to go with the right hook. I do not trust myself to do a 360 flying spin kick. Oh my gosh, are we really... Oh!
Oh God. Your head is in his hands, like a pair of forceps crushing you, and you can feel every jewel. Say it. I am a degenerate drunk.
As you can see with these dialogue options, how did this happen? I was winning. That would be me asking my brain itself and try and get a better understanding. I can say these things, or I can try to wiggle myself loose from his grasp. I doubt that's going to happen. I'm going to ask my brain quick.
You were, but then you made a wrong move, and now your skull feels like it's about to crack.
I'm just going to say it.
The compression is unbearable. This is causing
So if you saw in the bottom left corner, I took a hit to my morale because I admitted I was a drunk, and then my health was going to go down to 0, but I used a healing thing. It's kind of weird in that as you can see, I've got 2 bars for my health, 2 bars for my morale. When you're going from 1 to 0, it like slowly trickles down and gives you some time to use a healing thing, which is weird. It didn't explain that to me the first time, and my morale was going from 1 to 0, and I was like, what's happening? I don't understand what's happening. And it went to 0, and I got a sort of game over sort of thing. Kind of. It glitched out, and it was really weird, because I think I tried hitting the button at the last second, too. But yeah, when that's going from 1 to 0, you want to use a healing item, but I don't understand why it just doesn't do it automatically. It's weird that it's like, press the button, better hurry, because why would you want to let yourself go down?
You are a poor player of physical chess.
Oh, excuse my beautiful puppies. They tend to bark at things sometimes. Let's try it again. Oh yeah, what's gonna happen here?
How did this happen? Your little fist is in his jaw. You must be out of the crackle of bones.
Oh, is it just the same
Inside,
thing?
you can hear it. Good. Now leave before you humiliate
Interesting.
your homo
I've never seen that before.
Any further.
So one thing you may have noticed. Ooh, Kim wants to talk to me. That's interesting. One thing you'll notice is the voiceover. That's one thing that's in the final cut that I read wasn't in the original one. Is there's voice lines for absolutely everything in the game, every person, every brain thing. I'm not sure what it was like before, but I do really love the voice acting in this. It's very well, and it's good. So let's see what Kim wants to talk about. This is interesting.
I'd appreciate it if you didn't force us into situations where I may have to shoot random civilians, because that won't get us anywhere. I'm not even sure the one bullet my chamber holds would even prick that hook. Let's think of something else.
So, with me failing those checks, you can't just keep doing it over and over again. As you can see, they're locked. But if I level up throughout talking to people, throughout discovering things, and I put even a single point into conceptualization or physical instrument, it lets me try these again. There are so many things in the world where if you level up an attribute, it lets you try again. And I like that a lot. It helps you grow as a character, helps you learn things. Here's another part where sometimes you get stuck. I'm holding down and to the right, and he goes back up. If I hold up and to the right, he goes through. And this world is just filled with those checks, with your attributes. Man, they just do everything, absolutely everything. And it's such a cool system. I've never seen a system that's so in-depth with all of these attributes, all of these stats, and how they play into the world. It's just a really incredible thing. And the story itself, it's good all the way through. I tend to sometimes get bored. There's no detours. There's no like, now we have to go collect the 5 crystal fragments scattered around the world. It's just a continuous story, and it's as an ending I was happy with. If you are a person who loves a good story in a game, who loves attributes, stats, role playing, those kinds of things, this is a wonderful, excellent game, and you should check it out. Just go into it as blind as possible, honestly. I'm just kind of exploring the world now just to show you what it looks like, how it looks, all those things. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. I've got some small nitpicks, but it's tough to talk about this game just because, like, it is what it is. Like, I've described it as a game where you play as a cop solving a murder, you go around talking to people, investigating things, and that's all it is. And it does that very, very well. There's nothing deeper. The gameplay doesn't change. It's got a goal in mind, and it does it. And the world it builds is incredibly deep, incredibly thought out. The people you talk to are three-dimensional. The story beats make sense. You have so many options on how to talk to people, how to go about things, who you are as a cop, what kind of cop you are, how you do the investigation, whether you succeed, whether you fail. it's just one of those things, and it's really well done, one of those things. And I think if you're a person who loves a good story, who loves role-playing, who loves rolling the dice to see if you succeed in things, it's a game you should check out. And I know usually I have these videos be an hour, but because that's the name of the channel, is Amateur Hour Gaming. But I don't think there's anything more I need to say about it. It's an excellent game. Go ahead and check it out. If you like this video, if you like what you saw, drop a like, leave a comment. Subscribing would be cool. Share it with your friends. Tell them about this video, that you liked it. All that good stuff. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.